which is printed in the bulletin. Listen for the word of God. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it shall blossom abundantly, and rejoice with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the majesty of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord, the majesty of our God. Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, do not fear. Here is your God. God will come with reprisal, with terrible reparation. God will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the speechless sing for joy. For waters shall break forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. The haunt of jackals shall become a swamp. The grass shall become reeds and rushes. The highways shall be there, and it shall be called a holy way. It shall be for God's people. No traveler, not even fools, shall get lost. No lion shall be there, nor shall any ravenous beast come upon it. They shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. And the ransomed of the Lord shall return, and come to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. The word of the Lord, thanks be to God.
Story to tell about a time when there was a very greedy king who had lots and lots of gold. Gold covered every surface of his palace, but he wanted more. The king called together all his soldiers and told them to attack the neighboring kingdom. He told them, we need that gold so we can sell it to feed our own hungry countrymen. So off to battle they went, sword and shield lifted high. But the soldiers were not gone long before they began returning, not one of them with a sword or a shield. "What happened?" demanded the king. "I told you to go fight a battle and bring back that gold." One soldier replied, "We were on our way when we came across an apple tree, and the tree spoke to us. It said, 'Be wise and lay down your shields. Let truth be your sword, and study war no more.'" It seemed to us the tree made sense, so we did what it said. The king was furious and vowed to get rid of the tree that had ruined his plans. He waited until midnight and then walked to the field until he came upon that apple tree. The king took out his axe and chopped it down. But he was still so mad that he stomped on the fallen tree until it was crushed down into the earth. Satisfied, the king walked back to the castle with a smile on his face. The next day, the king called together all his soldiers back to the courtyard, and he told them that the kingdom was at risk of attack by their neighbors. We have to take their gold so they can't attack us. And he gave them all new shields and swords and told them to obey his orders to attack the neighboring kingdom. The soldiers went. And not long after, they started returning without their swords and shields. The king was furious. He shouted, "I told you to go fight a battle and come back with that gold." Well, one of the soldiers said, "We were on our way. But when we came to the spot where we saw the apple tree yesterday, you wouldn't believe it. There are 20 apple trees there today. And the trees all said the same thing. 'Be wise and lay down your shields. Let truth be your sword, and study war no more.' And the trees made sense to us. So we did what they said." The king was red with anger. "Those blasted trees," he thought. And that night he went out from his castle and chopped down every last one. But he was still mad. So he jumped on every one of them until they were completely crushed into the earth. The next day, he called all the soldiers to his courtyard, and he gave them new short swords and shields, and ordered them once again to attack the neighboring kingdom. This time, though, instead of telling them that their fellow citizens were hungry or that the kingdom was at risk, he told them, "They stole the gold from us first, so we have to get it back. It's a matter of our honor. Do not come back until you have carried out my orders." But the soldiers had not been gone long when they began returning without their swords and shields, and the king screamed, "I told you to go to battle. Why do you keep disobeying me?" "Well," said one of the soldiers, "you wouldn't believe it, but in the same place where there were 20 trees yesterday, apple trees, there is now an entire forest of trees. And they're all saying," but the king didn't wait to hear the rest. He just grabbed an axe and he ran until he came upon a forest of trees that stretched as far as the eye could see. And the king let out an exasperating scream because he knew there was no way he could chop down so many trees. He finally calmed down and muttered, "Can it be that a powerful king like me can be stopped by a few trees? Are you asking me?" The king was startled by a voice, and an old woman with long gray hair stepped out from behind the trees. "Well, okay," said the king, "if you have an answer, tell me." And she agreed with him. "It seems that you are a very powerful king." "You bet I am," he said, standing up tall and straight. "And since you are so powerful, you can take down any tree that offends you and chop it into little pieces and crush it into the ground." "You bet I can," he replied. "But," the woman said, "apple trees speak truth. And you may be a powerful king, but there is no one on earth more powerful than truth. For truth, crushed to the earth, shall rise again." That's a line from the poet William Cullen Bryant. Truth crushed to earth shall rise again. Heed not the shaft of hatred cast, the foul and hissing bolt of scorn. For with the right shall dwell at last the victory of endurance born. Martin Luther King used that line about truth crushed as he stood on the steps of the Capitol in Alabama after Bloody Sunday and the long delayed but finally successful march from Selma to Montgomery in 1965. And I want to hear you listen to a few excerpts. Last Sunday, more than 8,000 of us started on a mighty walk from Selma. We have walked through desolate valleys and across the trying hills. We have walked on meandering highways and rested our bodies on rocky byways. Some of our faces are burned from the outpourings of the sweltering sun. Some have literally slept in mud. We have been drenched by the rains. They told us we wouldn't get here. In fact, there were those who told us we would get here only over their dead bodies. But the world all knows now that we are here. And we stood before the forces of power saying we aren't going to let nobody turn us around. And I was struck by Dr. King's description of the road to Montgomery. Desolate valleys, trying hills, rocky byways. It's nothing like Isaiah's vision of the road to Zion. By contrast, the road ahead is not altogether a smooth one. There are no broad highways that lead us easily and inevitably to quick solutions. But we must keep going. And then here it is. We must come to see that the end we seek is a society that can live with its conscience, a nation at peace with itself. And he said, I know what you are asking today. How long will it take? How long will prejudice blind the visions of men, darken their understanding, and drive bright-eyed wisdom from her throne? When will wounded justice, lying prostrate in the streets, be lifted from the dust of shame to reign supreme? When will the radiant star of hope be plunged against the nocturnal bosom of this lonely night? How long will justice be crucified and truth bear it? Aren't those questions we're still asking today? I mean, aren't those questions we're especially asking today with truth on trial in Congress? What is truth? At the end of April, the president had racked up 10,000 false and misleading claims during his term in office. The same week that he lied to Sean Hannity 45 times during a 45-minute interview. Now, to be fair, those are not 10,000 unique lies. Every time a lie is repeated, it's counted again. So, one lie repeated 190 times counts for 190 lies. By October, the count had been raised to 13,000. Now, I don't like euphemisms like false claims or inaccuracies. These are nothing but assaults on facts and reality, deliberate. As Peter Winter said in the Atlantic magazine, the president isn't simply a serial liar. He is attempting to murder the very idea of truth. Remember his speech to the veterans of foreign war? What you are seeing is not happening. As Dr. King said, I know you are asking today, how long? How long will prejudice blind the visions of men, darken their understanding, and drive bright-eyed wisdom from her throne? How long will justice be crucified and truth bear it? And his answer, how long? Anyone know? Not long. Because the Bible says you shall reap what you sow. He said, how long? Not long. Because no lie can live forever. And then Dr. King quoted William Cullen Bryant, because truth, crushed to earth, shall rise again. In my opening story about the petulant king, when he angrily chopped down those apple trees and trampled them into the ground, that only produced more trees in its place. And fortunately, in the last few months, truth crushed into the ground by our petulant president has produced new trees too. Civil servants and military officers and professors of constitutional law rising up from the ground in increasing numbers to tell truth. Now, why is truth so important? Reverend Daniel Smith said, no truth means no accountability. No accountability means no justice. No justice means no healing, no mercy, no peace. No truth means no grace for any of us to face and accept our human failings. Why is truth so important? Because without it, we will not be at peace with ourselves. And the nation cannot be at peace with itself. Why is truth so important? Because when nothing is wrong, nothing can be made right. Our Thursday Noodles and Company lunch crowd was in no mood for our text from Isaiah for today, and instead of finding it inspiring, many reacted negatively. This is unrealistic, they said. This is just flowery language. This isn't real. They were in no mood for optimism. And I get it, these are times for healthy skepticism. So that makes me wonder, then, what were the times like for those to whom the prophet Isaiah was speaking? It sounds like Isaiah is encouraging the exiles. Exiles are forced from their land, taken from their homes and all that's familiar, now living as captives in the land of Babylon. The chapter before today's reading, chapter 34, speaks of absolute desolation. It's a wonderfully vivid description. A place full of screech owls, crows, hyenas, and snakes. And a dwelling for jackals, with streams dried up into sulfur dust. I mean, it's a wonderfully descriptive, frightening, dystopian world. But chapter 35, it's a beautiful, hope-filled vision. The prophet proclaims one day you will return to Zion, to Jerusalem, on a highway through the desert so broad, I love this line, that not even fools will get lost. He speaks of the desert in glorious bloom and burning sand that has become springs of water. But here's something weird about that. So these texts were written long after they were already home. They were back in Jerusalem. And I'm not sure their way to Zion was full of people singing and everlasting joy shining upon their heads. And if it was, that was a long time ago. And their lives right now were a series of one big disappointment after another. Their temples still lay in ruin. So why prophesy something in the future that's already happened, or rather, did not happen? All that flowery imagery was just as unrealistic as our crowd at Noodles and Company felt about the text in our times. And why not? If they weren't in the mood for optimism either, why should we? We've lost trust in institutions that once held us together. And yet, many times for good reason. I mean, for example, when religious leaders protect sex offenders and sexual predators instead of vulnerable children and adults, I mean, what's left of their integrity? When we read posts on social media, are they from real people? or Russian trolls. When police unions protect their own instead of people of color, what happens to truth? Because no truth means no accountability. No accountability means no justice. And no justice means no healing, no mercy, no peace, no grace. When nothing is wrong, nothing can be made right. But what about the lies we tell? Privilege can only be maintained on a series of lies we accept as true. That somehow we have the right to be on land we stand on today. That after Dr. King proclaimed his dream, it actually came true. And that people of color or migrants or people who are poor actually fared better under the last administration than they do now. The lie that everything used to be better and that the current administration is an abnormality isn't the full truth. And yet, there can be no doubt. These are particularly egregious and terrible times. But I was really struck by the vision of Dr. King of a society that can live with its conscience. What an image. And he wasn't describing a world no longer at war, but a nation at peace with itself. That is a beautiful, hope-filled, prophetic vision. Impossible? So here's my truth. I may grieve the time we are in. I may be perpetually angry. But we are people of faith. And with faith, we persist in difficult hope. I take inspiration from the words of Paul to Christians who feared death before Jesus came again. He told the Thessalonians, "We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about those who have died, so that you may not grieve as others who have no hope." Now, sometimes that's taken to mean you're not allowed to grieve because you have hope, or you're supposed to have hope. But grief and hope are not opposites. You and I can grieve and have hope. Which is why, year after year, we keep lighting these Advent candles to proclaim truth crushed to earth shall rise again. Heed not the shaft by hatred cast, the foul and hissing bolt of scorn. For with the right shall dwell at last the victory of endurance born. And, yes, endurance, yeah. Through this time that we grieve, 13,000 lives and counting, key is endurance. And instead of losing faith, Paul tells the Romans, endurance produces character. But do you know what character produces, according to Paul? Hope. Endurance produces character, and character produces hope. So my question is, though we may grieve, will you endure with me this beautiful and difficult hope of a society with a conscience, the vision of a nation at peace with itself, when that which is very wrong is made right? Amen.
Amen.